5 spine-chilling teacher tales exposing the sinister secrets behind your haunted classroom. The air in the old brick building was thick with dread, a tingle of fear curling in every corner. As Sarah stepped inside her childhood high school, a sense of familiarity washed over her, but beneath it lay an unsettling presence. Laughter that once rang joyfully through the hallways felt muted, replaced by a haunting stillness that made her skin prickle. It took only a whisper of the wind to stir memories of the beloved student who had vanished years ago. Evelyn, the girl with the bright smile and dreams that were snuffed out like a candle in the dark. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead buzzed ominously as Sarah made her way to the staff lounge, her heart pounding like a drum. She could hear the muffled chatter of her new colleagues, shadows creeping around the edges of the room, wary eyes glancing her way. Whispers ricocheted off the walls, tales of past tragedies tucked neatly into shadows. As the bell rang, signaling the start of the school day, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, tightening her throat. Something was wrong. Flashes of light caught her eye, darting between the dingy lockers and beneath the flickering exit signs. And then, it began a soft echo of ghostly laughter that twisted her stomach into knots. At first, she dismissed it as her imagination, but when the haunting notes transformed into ragged breaths, her fingers trembled against the papers on her desk. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah dug deeper into the school's history, she found old yearbooks, dusty and riddled with neglect. Among the smiling faces, the name Evelyn seemed to glow like a warning. Disappearance. The word screamed at her, each letter ominous yet strangely comforting. Could these secrets be what caused her colleagues to retreat, eyes darting with fear? Flickering lights became less of an anomaly and more an omen, shadows flitting in her periphery, drawing her closer to the precipice of sordid stories. The tension smothered her. Every staff meeting felt charged with an electricity born from shared silence. When she confronted her co-workers about the ghost stories they had laughed off, their eyes turned steely, their smiles strained. In the vacant gaze of one veteran teacher, Sarah detected the fear that gripped them all, a fear of speaking, of recognizing the truth buried beneath the school's facade. Then came the first note. They ended badly. Follow the screams. It felt like a chilling invocation, a serpent's hiss in the dark. Distrust swirled around her like a fog. What history did these walls conceal? As night descended on the school, Sarah was drawn to the echoes of lost children, their voices mingling with her own frantic thoughts. Alone, and gripping her notebook for strength, the darkness beckoned her deeper. Something awaited her, coiled and watchful. She was no longer just a teacher, she was an intruder peeling back layers of dread, searching for something sacred long abandoned. But what if the truth bore a price she wasn't ready to pay? What if the darkness claimed her too, another tragic tale swallowed by the hungry halls of her haunted classroom? The air felt heavier now, thick with the weight of the unknown. Sarah's footsteps echoed louder as she traversed the abandoned hallway, a phantom's heart like a metronome steadying her resolve. The flickering lights swung overhead, casting erratic shadows that danced around her like spirits in torment. Each step pulled her deeper into the labyrinth of her own disquiet. She clutched the note, her fingers tightening around the creased edges. Follow the screams. It gripped her thoughts, leaving no room for rationalization. Who had penned it? The whispers of her colleagues crawled back into her mind, warnings of things best left in the dark. With her heart racing, she arrived at the door to the old music room, a forgotten cave of lost melodies and hidden sorrows. She hesitated, memories flooding back. The last school play had ended in chaos, laughter intertwined with screams. Evelyn's name echoed again, suffocating her sanity. Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed the door open. The sound reverberated like a gunshot in the quiet. Dust motes hung in the air, illuminated by the dim bulb swinging overhead. The room looked untouched, except for the weird chill that wrapped around her like an icy shroud. She stepped inside, immediately tingling with the sensation of being watched. She moved cautiously, glancing at the cracked mirrors that lined the walls. A face sometimes twisted into a grotesque grin seemed to flicker in her reflection. A chill settled in her bones. Then, amidst the silence, she heard it, a distant wail, a piercing cry that ripped through the stillness. Panic ripped through her heart, its echo more than a sound, it was an invitation, a command. She realized it was coming from the basement beneath her feet. The thought of abyssal darkness and the unidentified source of those screams sent a cascade of dread cascading through her. In that moment, the overhead light succumbed to a grim flicker and went dark, plunging her into blackness. Just a power outage, she whispered to herself, though doubt gnawed at her. The echoes of faint laughter resumed, softer now, but closer. Someone had been here before, and they had laughed just as she did when she walked these halls. Drawing upon her courage, she knew she couldn't turn back. She had to find the basement. She fumbled for her phone, a lone beam cutting through the swathes of darkness. Its glow was weak but steady, guiding her out of the music room and down the stairs, each creak murmuring warnings. The basement was colder, the air electric and heavy. Her footsteps were cautious, and the shadows here seemed thicker, swirling as if alive. The screams rose again, louder, urgent, desperate. They hit her like a physical force, seemingly beckoning her to approach. An ancient wooden door stood slightly ajar at the far end, its rusted hinges crying out for release. Should she step forward? What waited behind that door? Was it a truth waiting to be uncovered, or a monstrosity that had been hiding, biding time till it could claim her? The laughter crescendoed, swirling around her. Every instinct told her to run. But what if Evelyn was there? Fueled by both fear and an overwhelming drive to discover the truth, Sarah took a step forward, the echo of her movement swallowed in the ominous silence and curiosity. Would she find salvation, or would she join the chorus of screams? As her fingers brushed the cold handle of the door, she hesitated, grappling with the weight of her decision. In that moment, the basement erupted in chaotic whispers, drawing her into a dark, unyielding fate. The final moment of choice loomed: walk through, or run from the darkness. And the echo of a haunting reminder lingered in her mind: do you dare? The rusted door creaked open slowly, the protest of aged wood, a sinister welcome. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, echoing with the laughter that continued to flutter around her, ghostly and uninvited. She squeezed her eyes shut for a brief second, then forced herself to look inside. The basement was a twisted reflection of the world above, a forgotten realm drenched in shadows, layered with dust that seemed to breathe. The walls, grimy and cracked, warped the beam from her phone. Shadows moved in tandem, flitting just beyond the edge of her vision, teasing her senses. The screams surged again, a palpable wave crashing over her in a mix of terror and urgency. They felt familiar, laced with a deep sorrow that pinched her heart. Fear gripped her throat, tightening as she took a step down the narrow stairs, each creak underfoot a taunt from the darkness. At the bottom, the air thickened, heavy like a damp blanket. Sarah strained her ears, straining to discern the source of those wails. A flicker caught her attention: a small form crumpled in the corner. Dread curled in her stomach as she approached, sensing a presence entwined with the despair echoing within the shadows. Evelyn! She called, her voice weak and trembling, lost amid the chaos. The figure didn't respond. It remained motionless, shrouded in darkness. As she edged closer, the laughter grew clearer, morphing into malicious whispers that crawled under her skin. Help me! It was a fragile plea, both desperate and hauntingly familiar. It's all your fault. The figure stirred, and Sarah stumbled back, breaths coming in shallow gasps. The faint light from her phone caught a glimpse of tangled hair, a twisted face locked in anguish. Memories flooded back: Evelyn's bright laugh in the schoolyard, her warmth, suddenly transformed into this monstrosity of sorrow. No, this can't be happening, Sarah blurted, shaking her head as if it could erase the horror before her. With renewed panic, she turned away. But something gripped her wrist cold and unyielding. Sarah gasped, the phone slipping from her fingers, the feeble light extinguishing into darkness. "Stay with me." The voice was low, an echo of the innocence that had once been Evelyn. But now, it was laced with something darker, something that rattled her core. The realization hit her like a fist to the gut. She had come to find Evelyn but had now stumbled onto a malevolence that demanded sacrifice. "Let go!" She screamed, pulling with all her strength, but the grip only tightened, sending shockwaves of fear coursing through her. The laughter roared, swirling around her like a storm, filling her with doubt and dread. Just when she thought she would be dragged into the abyss, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating the basement for a heartbeat. Shadows danced madly, revealing grotesque shapes writhing in the corners, figures locked in an eternal struggle, faces she recognized from years ago, frozen in despair. Then, just as violently, the light vanished, leaving her in an engulfing void once again. The grasp released, and Sarah stumbled backward, panic clawing at her throat. "What is happening?" she cried, scrambling to find her footing, the echoes of her own voice swallowed by the darkness. She whipped around, searching for an escape, but the shadows congealed, blocking her path. A loud bang reverberated from the rusted door above, startling her to stillness. "Sarah, you have to come back." It was a voice she recognized, a familiar plea that cut through the chaos, pulling her attention to the door. Desperation flooded her veins as she backed toward it. But who had called her? The basement roared again, laughter morphing into a cacophony of screams. Was it her own name ringing in her ears? What if these voices belonged to those who had come before her, lured just like she had? With a final glance at the grinning shadows, she made her choice to leap toward the door. Heart pounding, she pulled on the handle with all her might, praying for escape. Would the darkness release her, or pull her back into its unfathomable depths? The door rattled fiercely, and a chilling whisper slithered past her ear, "You cannot leave." The handle screamed in protest as Sarah yanked it, the door rattling violently. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribs like a desperate prisoner trying to escape. Every second felt like an eternity, and the whispers burrowed deeper into her mind, their laughter prickling like cold fingers on her skin. "Please." Sarah's voice cracked, desperation seeping into her words. With a final push, the door swung open, revealing the corridor behind it, lined with flickering light. The moment felt too simple, tainted by the sheer horror she had faced. She hesitated, glancing back at the basement. The shadows seemed to lean closer, breathing her name, pulling at the edges of her resolve. "Don't let them take you, Sarah." The voice echoed again, sharper this time, almost piercing through the veil of shadow. It was Evelyn, her tone drenched in urgency. But why would Evelyn want her to leave? Wasn't Evelyn the one calling for help? Heart pounding in her throat, Sarah rushed through the doorway. The air shifted, heavier than before, wrapping around her like chilled fingers. She stepped backward, facing the basement once more, gripping the doorframe like a lifeline, the darkness pulsating in response to her uncertainty, but the corner where Evelyn had hunched was empty now. An icy dread pooled in her stomach, twisting tighter with each passing moment. Had she imagined it? The face? The tangled hair? Or the girl she had once known? The laughter crept back, insistent and mocking. It swept over her, drowning out her thoughts, fanning the flames of her panic. "Run!" A voice screamed from the depths of the basement. A primal urge surged within her, propelling her away from the door, down the corridor and back toward the familiar safety of her past. She stumbled, skidding to a stop when another explosion of laughter erupted from behind her, jarring her senses. "Why won't you stay?" It chimed, a haunting echo that filled the space with malice. Each step felt like a treachery against her own choices. How could she return to a world where shadows and echoes bound her? But when she glanced back, the door lay ajar, the yawning darkness within shimmering like a living thing, inviting yet threatening. That eye in the distance, she spotted a flickering light, a glimmer of hope. She dashed toward it, the beams illuminating remnants of what once was a playground. The swing swayed gently, despite the stillness. It was too familiar, echoing fragments of innocence that now felt agonizingly out of reach. Sarah, a soft voice filtered through, rich with sorrow. She spun around, eyes wide, searching for the source. It was Evelyn again, her presence ethereal yet unmistakable. "You have to stop running." The shadows danced behind her, morphing into the torment of the children lost too soon. Her heartbeat quickened, a rhythmic counterpoint to the chaos that surrounded her. "What do you want?" Sarah cried, her voice breaking. "I just want to help you." But deep down, she knew that she could be pulled into darkness, just as they had been. "They're lying," Evelyn whispered, sorrow deepening her features. "You are the key to breaking this curse. But you have to face it." Before Sarah could respond, she felt something brush against her cheek, a presence, warm and chilling at the same time. The laughter crescendoed, engulfing her in a whirlwind of fear and isolation. Shadows pressed in, reaching for her like hands grasping from the abyss. "Do it. Join us," they urged. Their cold breath ghosted her neck, paralyzing her with dread. "Run!" Evelyn's voice rang through the cacophony, slicing like a knife. Sarah staggered backward, caught between two worlds, one of light and hope, the other a descent into darkness. "Where will you go?" The laughter taunted. The game has just begun. As the shadows twirled around her, the once kind face of Evelyn twisted into something fierce and desperate, and Sarah felt the hair on her arms stand on end. The choice now loomed before her, thick and palpable. Would she dare plunge into the darkness to uncover the truth? Or flee, leaving Evelyn behind forever? Panic gripped her soul. With trembling hands, she took a step forward into the wailing abyss, uncertain of what awaited her. The darkness enveloped Sarah as she stepped into the abyss. The air grew thick, suffocating her with whispers and unchecked dread. The moment she crossed the threshold, an icy wind rushed past, sending a shiver through her core. Shadows flitted around her, forming grotesque shapes that twisted and writhed, just beyond the reach of the flickering light. "Join us," the voices sang, weaving through her mind like a sinister lullaby. Each syllable dripped with malice, drowning her in despair. She fought against the pounding in her chest. "Evelyn! Where are you?" The sound of her own voice felt foreign, swallowed by the darkness. Panic clawed at her throat as the shadows seemed to thicken, a swirling tide threatening to pull her under. "Face them." Evelyn's voice echoed again, now distant, as though trapped in a chamber far from here. "You can't run forever." Another flicker of light caught her eye, brighter this time. She bolted toward it, only to find it was a corridor lined with more doors, each one stained and worn. The laughter persisted, spiking her fears, urging her back, reminding her that the basement wasn't finished with her yet. "Sarah," the voice slithered through the air like smoke. "Help us." She reached for another door, its handle cold against her palm. A terrible feeling settled in her stomach as she swung it wide. Inside, the room was filled with toys, scattered like remnants of vanished joy. Dolls with cracked faces stared back at her, their glassy eyes reflecting her dread. The walls vibrated with laughter that blended into sobs, a haunting melody of loss. "What do you want from me?" The desperation in her voice echoed against the emptiness as shadows flared in response, swirling like a dark storm. A chill coursed down her spine when she thought about the children Evelyn had mentioned, the lost, forced to play in endless suffering. "Join us," they repeated, the tone shifting. "We only want to play." A warning flared inside her, recalling the old tales of haunted places where spirits lingered, unable to move on. Could these shadows be the remnants of the children she'd heard about? Were they all just trapped in this cycle of darkness? Fighting against the suffocating dread, she turned and sprinted through the next door, heart hammering. The room was different, dimly lit, covered in dirt. Broken furniture lay strewn about, creating a maze of obstacles. A sudden crash echoed from the far corner, and she froze in place, the shadows retreating momentarily as if watching her reaction. "What was that?" she whispered, breathless. A shuffling sound broke the silence. She edged forward, scanning the room. An old rocking horse creaked, swaying eerily on its own. Then, impossibly, she saw a small figure, a child, standing still, facing the wall, hair hanging like curtains around her small frame. "Evelyn." Sarah's voice trembled. "Is that you?" The child turned slowly, her face half hidden, a twisted smile revealing broken teeth, dark stains creeping along her cheeks. "We need to play, Sarah. You'll never escape until you do." Fear crashed over her in waves. Each second stretched into infinity, suffocating under the weight of reality pressing against her. She felt it, an undeniable urge to take her place among them. To succumb to the playfulness, the darkness. But the memory of Evelyn's words surged back. "You are the key." In a flash, the child lunged toward her, laughter morphing into a chilling shriek. Without thought, Sarah turned and ran, pushing through the opposing shadows, tenuously aware that with every second, she might be spiraling closer to her own demise. As she barreled down the next corridor, all thoughts of escape mingled with dread. She could feel the shadows pursuing her, their desperate whispers brushing against her skin. "You can't hide, you belong with us." Suddenly, a door appeared, brighter than the rest. Hope surged through her like an electric jolt. But what lay beyond? Would she find sanctuary or face the true horrors waiting in the dark? Without thinking, she lunged forward. Would she truly break the cycle, or join the countless lost souls forever entwined in the darkness? The door swung open, and Sarah stepped through, uncertain of what awaited her on the other side. The moment Sarah stepped through the door, she was thrust into a new reality, a classroom, but one that felt eerily off. The air was thick with dust that had settled over desks and chairs, as though time had forgotten this place. The walls were peeling, a faded map of the world hung crookedly, the colors dull and lifeless. Children's drawings were plastered haphazardly around the room, but the images twisted her stomach. A sun with a grimace, faces with wide, hollow smiles, and, scrawled in crayon, "Help us." Each drawing felt like a note from a trapped soul, begging for release. "Evelyn." Sarah called out again, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "Are you here?" No answer. Just the soft creak of an old ceiling fan, swinging back and forth, casting shadows that danced across the room. Then, a sudden rustle from the corner of the room drew her attention. A figure emerged from behind a desk, tall and thin. A teacher. The figure stepped into the light, and Sarah's heart dropped. The man's face was gaunt, eyes sunken and dark, his mouth twisted into a rictus of a grin that sent icy fingers of fear racing down her spine. "Welcome back," he rasped, every syllable a dagger. "We've missed you." "Who are you?" She stammered, trying to back away but finding her feet glued to the floor. "What have you done to Evelyn?" "Oh, she's around playing," he said, waving dismissively. "But you should be focused on joining the lesson. It's time for the grand reveal." The hairs on her neck stood on end as shadows shifted, a cacophony of whispers rising to a deafening roar. "Join us." They echoed, their voices layered like a choir of lost souls. "Learn the truth. Stay away from me." She shouted, panicked, as the classroom seemed to shrink, the walls closing in. Despair seeped into her bones. This was no ordinary classroom, it felt like a trap. The teacher laughed, a sound that sliced through the roaring shadows. "You're scared, but you need to understand. The game is played differently here. You think you can run? Let me go." She screamed, urgency clawing at her throat. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to find Evelyn." "Did you now?" He mused, tilting his head, the grin never wavering. "You think your will can withstand what we've created? The darkness has a way of twisting desires." Sarah felt the walls pulse around her, a heartbeat synchronized with hers, drawing tighter. She had to escape. "Think, Sarah." Hissing whispers echoed as the children's drawings flared to life, their smiles stretching impossibly wide, eyes burning with urgency. "You are the key, find the lesson, unlock the truth." The teacher approached, his fingers elongating, reaching toward her like branches of some twisted tree, threatening to ensnare her in their grip. No. She willed herself to break free, pulling from the depths of her fear. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Sarah turned to flee, racing toward the nearest door at the end of the room. Would it lead her to escape or further into the darkness? With every step, she felt the cold breath of the shadows nipping at her heels. The classroom echoed with the laughter and cries of lost children, a cacophony spiraling into panic, urging her to retreat but pushing her forward. As she flung the door open, the smell of decay hit her like a wave. Beyond lay another corridor, deeper than anything she had yet encountered. The walls were brimming with something dark, pulsating like a heartbeat, a closer connection to the shadows that conspired against her. But what lay beyond the corridor? Was there a way out, or was she trapped in the basement's web of nightmares forever? In an electrifying moment of clarity, she knew every step she took was a fraction of a choice to reclaim her life or surrender to the darkness. Evelyn! She cried out one last time, the name echoing into the unknown. Dread pinched her as she took a step forward, plunging deeper into the mists of shadow and despair. Would she find her friend or descend further into nightmare? Time blurred as the darkness beckoned her closer. As Sarah stepped into the corridor, the air thickened, pressing against her chest. The walls seemed to breathe, in and out, like a living thing filled with secrets. The corridor stretched endlessly, illuminated by flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps. She could hear whispers again, soft and sinister. They wrapped around her like tendrils of fog, pulling her deeper. Find her. They urged, swirling with uncertainty. Find Evelyn. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing louder in her ears. It felt wrong to be here, to be looking for someone in this wretched place. Shadows writhed around her, and as she pressed onward, she noticed strange symbols carved into the walls, their meanings lost but their malevolence unmistakable. They pulsed with an energy that mirrored the darkness. Evelyn! She called out again, desperation twisting her voice. Was it recklessness to make noise here? Would it summon whatever horrors lurked just out of sight? A door loomed ahead, cracked and frail. It felt like an invitation, but to what? She hesitated, the weight of instinct urging her to turn back. Yet, a flicker of hope danced in her mind. Could Evelyn be there? Could those whispers actually be guiding her home? With a trembling hand, Sarah pushed the door open, the creaking hinges screaming against the silence. Inside, she was met with a room even more unsettling than the last. It was a library, but not one of books. No, this was a collection of nightmares, stacked journals filled with scrawled notes and crumpled drawings. Each page seemed to vibrate with despair, their contents begging her to look deeper. What she found twisted her stomach. Images of her childhood flashed before her, memories grafted into their words. They took her, one note read. She is one of us now, another whispered. Each page clawed at her sanity, the ink bleeding into her mind. Evelyn. She whispered, her voice barely breaking the suffocating silence. Panic crept back in, clawing at her. She rifled through the scattered sheets, trembling fingers causing them to flutter like trapped birds. Suddenly, the room shifted. Shadows darted across the walls, morphing into familiar faces, children, faces she recognized, all screaming silently, their mouths moving but no sound reaching her. Help us! They mouthed in horror, each face frozen in a twisted expression of fear and hope. Sarah stumbled back, the weight of their pleas crashing over her. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Each child's drawing came alive in her mind, those grimacing sons, those beady eyes, the crooked smiles. The classroom had shown her their desperation. Here, it manifested into something otherworldly. Stay away! She yelled, retreating to the door, but it slammed shut behind her with an ear-splitting crack. No! Her heart thudded violently as she rattled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. She could feel them, that energy from the walls drawing closer. What if Evelyn was here, trapped in this eternal nightmare? She had to find her, but how could she save her friend from shadows dancing between the pages? As the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of angry voices, Sarah knew she was running out of time. Evelyn. Where are you? A sudden chill swept through the room, paralyzing her. The air thickened with tension, vibrating with an unspeakable horror, and then she felt it. A cold breath ghosted past her ear, and she turned to see a figure emerging from the darker recesses of the room, its shape barely recognizable. "Join us," it hissed, its echo barely containing the delight of those gobbling up her fear. The air grew electric, the shadows enveloping her as her sanity frayed. "Help!" She screamed, the sound swallowed by a void of silence. A distant laughter filtered through the chaos, taunting her. "Find the lesson, Sarah." Was this the lesson she needed to learn? Or was it just another trap? The figure crept closer, and Sarah felt her back press against the door. She had to act. But in this place, this godforsaken labyrinth of nightmares, what could she possibly discover that would lead her to her friend? Would she face the sinister truth lurking within those pages, or would she become yet another lost soul within this haunted hall? The figure stepped closer, its face shrouded in shadow. It radiated an unsettling presence, as if the darkness around it were alive and hungry. Sarah's breath quickened, her chest tightening with a blend of fear and desperation. The whispers surged, wrapping around her throat, suffocating her thoughts. "Join us," it hissed again, and this time, she could feel a sliver of its icy breath against her skin, chilling her to the core. Panic clawed at her mind. What did it mean? Who were we? "Get away from me!" she shouted, half-hearted. There was no strength behind her words, and the voice trembled with the weight of despair. The sinister laughter echoed through the room, mingling with the whispers and creating a symphony of terror that pressurized every inch of space. She pressed her palms against the wooden door behind her, forcing herself to think. Evelyn had to be somewhere in this place. But where? The words in the journals kept haunted her, they took her. What kind of power could take someone, especially in a place filled with these nightmares? Gathering her courage, she ripped her gaze from the figure to the closest pile of journals, sifting through the top layer. What had Evelyn written? What had she learned about this place? But instead of words, eerie images aroused her curiosity, sketches of faces distorted by fear, haunting woods, and open mouths that seemed to scream without sound. A shiver coursed through her. Each image triggered a thread of memory, loosening her grip on reality. Suddenly, the figure lunged forward, darkness spilling away to reveal the ghostly faces of children's spirits. Their eyes were wide, their pleas for help resonated in the air, pulling her closer. "Find the lesson." Their echo filled the room, drowning out the laughter, the whispers, the snapping uncertainty. But what lesson? What truth lurked beneath each page? I can't," she cried, overwhelmed. The walls pulsated in response, throbbing with anger. A low growl echoed through the library, the shadows forming a twisted hall of arms reaching out for her. In a panic, Sarah grabbed a journal and began flipping through pages, her fingers trembling. Desperate scribbles filled the margins, warnings about the darkness that resides here, cryptic notes that told of a key hidden deep within the confines of the school. "Evelyn," she begged, her mind racing. She skimmed a page, and suddenly, a name leapt out at her, the keeper. Who was this keeper, and what part did they play in the horror festering here? The laughter morphed into an unsettling chant. "The lesson is in the keeper. Find the key." The walls shook as if the building itself were alive, responding to her frantic searching. "No!" she cried. "You want to take me too." She slammed a journal shut, and in that moment, the uncertainty cleared. She saw the way forward. Grabbing a different volume, she felt its weight shift as though something solid resided between the pages. It slipped through her fingers and fell open at her feet. A small key dropped out, glinting eerily in the dim light. The shadows recoiled as if the key's presence unnerved them. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was how she would find Evelyn. The figure retreated, but its eyes gleamed with malice, as if mocking her attempt. "You can't escape from us," it cooed, fading into the dark once more. With the key clutched in her palm, Sarah knew she had to move quickly. There were choices ahead: open a door, confront the keeper, or maybe even dive deeper into the abyss forming within these walls, but deep down, she felt the weight of a new fear. What if the key unlocked something worse? Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. The hall stretched out in front of her, whispers growing in a frenzy, urging her to hurry. Would she survive the night and find Evelyn, or would she be swallowed into the shadows alongside the cries of the lost children? The deeper she ventured, the more uncertain her fate became. The air hung thick around her as Sarah gripped the key tighter, her heart hammering like a frantic drum in her chest. The echo of the figure's last words lingered in her mind, taunting her, swirling like smoke. There was no turning back now. She had to choose. With every step down the darkened hall, the shadows flickered and twisted, as if alive. The whispers grew louder, burgeoning into a cacophony of despair. Find the keeper. They cried, unlock the truth. What truth? Sarah's mind raced, grappling with the urgency of the moment. Her eyes scanned the walls, searching for any sign of a door that might lead her to a way out or to Evelyn. A shrill cry reverberated in her ears, snatching her attention. Help us! It was a chorus of lost souls, trapped somewhere just beyond her vision. The thought sent a jolt of fear coursing through her. There, partially hidden under layers of shadow, she spotted a door at the end of the corridor. It loomed larger with each tentative step she took, its wooden frame splintered and ancient. Shivering, she reached for the key that felt almost too cold in her palm. Would it fit? Each heartbeat resounded like thunder in her ears as she reached the door. With trembling hands, she inserted the key into the rusty lock. To her surprise, it turned easily, and the door creaked open with a long, drawn-out groan, as if protesting her intrusion. Inside was an expansive room, filled with old desks and chalkboards covered in cryptic symbols. The dim light barely illuminated the dust swirling in the air as if the entire atmosphere recoiled from her presence. The strong scent of mildew pushed its way into her lungs, but she pressed forward. Stay away. A voice broke through the silence, sharp and clear. Her heart lurched. The voice was familiar. Evelyn. She shouted, spinning around, scanning the darkened corners of the room. Yes, she could feel it, the magnetic pull of a connection. But where? Shadows danced mischievously, elongating and contorting into shapes that teased her perception. As she moved deeper, she caught a glimpse of a figure behind one of the desks, small and hunched, trembling as if in fear. With a sinking feeling, she approached cautiously. The figure looked up, revealing wide eyes that flickered with recognition. Sarah, it whispered, the voice cracking like dry twigs. What happened to you? Sarah pressed. The desperation clawing at her insides felt like a vice. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The walls pulsed, and the room echoed with laughter again, loud and mocking, drowning out Evelyn's voice. They're here. The girl gasped, pointing. Shadows twisted and turned, revealing faces that Sarah recognized from the sketches. The children's spirits closed in around Evelyn, their faces warped with anguish. She couldn't think. Panic flooded her. What do you want? She screamed, desperate to be heard. Join us. They chorused, extending their ethereal hands, beckoning her to surrender. No. Sarah stepped back, bumping into a desk. The key slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Suddenly, the shadows lunged, the room spinning into a whirlpool of chaos. Find the keeper. Their whispers screamed above a tumult of despair. She had to act quickly. Without thinking, she grabbed a piece of chalk from the floor. She needed to defend herself. She scribbled furiously on the nearest chalkboard, a frantic sketch of a door, the same door that had led her here. I will not stay. She howled. The laughter turned into howls of rage, and the room exploded with swirling darkness, threatening to swallow her whole. Desperation surged within her. If she could summon the keeper, maybe she could break free. With each desperate stroke, the imagery shifted. The children cried out one last time, their faces blending into a sea of panic. Now, find us. Their voices echoed as the shadows converged around her. The inked door glimmered for a moment, a flicker of hope. But was this truly a way out? With the shadows reaching for her, Sarah had one choice left. She would step through the door of her own making or be forever lost. The pulse of urgency quickened in her veins as she lunged towards the sketch. What lay beyond could either be liberation or doom, and she was about to find out. As Sarah lunged toward the chalk-drawn door, she felt a jolt of energy surge through her. The shadows hissed, their grip momentarily faltering as they recoiled from the glowing image. It felt like the very essence of hope pulsed in her veins, overwhelming the darkness surrounding her. Instinctively, she pushed against the chalkboard, and a light, almost blinding, erupted from the doorway before her, illuminating the chaos in the room. "Evelyn!" she called out, glancing back at the spectral figure, still cloaked in fear. The girl's eyes widened, filled with a mix of terror and admiration. "You can break free." Just as the shadows clawed back toward her, Sarah dove through the makeshift door, crossing the threshold with sheer resolve. The moment she stepped through, she was engulfed in a warm wave of light, bright and shimmering, washing over her like summer sun breaking through a thundercloud. For a fractured second, she felt weightless, and then she landed softly on a grassy field, the echoes of laughter fading into peaceful silence. She blinked, trying to adjust to her surroundings. A playground stretched out before her, sunlit and vibrant, filled with children lost in giggles and the innocent joys of youth. A soft breeze stirred the air, bringing with it the scent of fresh grass and sweet blossoms. It felt like a world apart, untouched by the shadows that had clawed at her in the depths of the school. "Sarah!" A familiar voice called her back to reality. "Evelyn!" Her heart raced as she spun around. There, near the swings, stood Evelyn, alive, radiant, and smiling. The years of darkness and despair fell away, revealing the girl Sarah had known, her essence glowing like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Evelyn, it's really you!" Sarah cried, rushing forward. She reached out, pulling her friend into a tight embrace. The warmth was real, solid, a world apart from the chilling grasp of the shadows. "I thought I lost you forever," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling with relief. "You came for me. You broke the curse. You are free." "But how?" Sarah struggled to comprehend the brilliance around her. "The darkness, the shadows, the keeper." "The keeper is bound by fear," Evelyn explained, her eyes shimmering with understanding. "You found the strength to face it, to realize your power. You had the key all along." "What about the others? The children?" Panic returned to Sarah, the weight of their cries heavy on her heart. "They're free, too," Evelyn reassured her. "Because of you. Your courage shattered the link, bringing them into the light." The truth washed over them, binding their spirits together in a shared joy. In a sudden flash, the vibrancy of the playground grew still, the laughter returned to a haunting echo in the distance. The playground gradually faded, swirling around them with as much intensity and confusion as the shadows that had once consumed her. "Is this goodbye?" Sarah asked, feeling a pang of anxiety grip her heart. "No," Evelyn smiled, fading yet resolute. "You will carry our spirits with you. In laughter, in joy, in love, never let go of the light. Remember us." As Sarah blinked back tears, she realized the shadows receding into the distance around her. The light enveloped her heart, urging her to cherish the love around her. She opened her eyes, and in that moment, she felt free, no longer burdened by shadows, but uplifted by the memories of those she had saved. With the softness of innocence in the air again, she stepped forward, back toward her life, her heart lighter than it had been since she first entered the haunting halls of her school. Finally, as she stood outside, the sun kissed the earth like a long-awaited embrace, casting warmth across her face. All that she had endured crystallized in her thoughts, a powerful reminder of both fear and bravery, but now infused with hope. "Remember," she whispered to the breeze, knowing the echoes of laughter would linger forever, and she would honor their memory every single day. And as she turned away from the past, determination surged within her, urging her to seek out new adventures, new stories, and to share her own. In that moment, feeling renewed, she knew it was time to rise, to live, and to embrace every heartbeat of life. Now, to you, dear friends. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support helps more than you know. Flood that comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I'm dying to hear from you all, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand how vital it is to support your channel through these actions. Let us create a community that celebrates every thrilling moment together.